Teachers' unions are now waiting to hear when they will be able to meet Basic Education Minister Angie Motshekga over their demands for schools to be closed. Motshekga was due to meet with unions today to discuss calls for an immediate end to face-to-face teaching nationwide. Now, the National Professional Teachers Organisation of South Africa has joined SADTU's calls for schools to be closed until the coronavirus curve has flattened. Naptosa says their decision is based on changing science guidelines as well as the impact of the virus on teachers. Joining us to get a sense of Teachers Union's decision is Naptosa Executive Director Basil Manuel. Basil, a very good morning to you, and thank you for joining us this morning. You've joined SADTU's call to ensure that face-to-face teaching is cancelled for now. Just talk us through some of your very pressing concerns at this time.
Good morning. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be with you. We met as a standing committee of Naptosa yesterday, and of course we looked at the signs of the times, and especially our members' mental and physical health. This has been taking a tremendous toll on the mental health of teachers. But more than that, the fact that there is so much information out there, the call by the WHO for us not to have schools open during the peak of the pandemic, and rather to delay such an opening until we at a stage when the pandemic is showing a downward turn and fewer increases in community infections. That, together with the fact, of course, that attendance is abysmal in schools. It is not true that we are having great attendance, and it's the random opening and closing of schools is certainly also another factor. We didn't come lightly to the decision. I think the correct terminology is that we agonized over it, because Naptosa is still of the view that the best place for children is in a school. But at this stage, we don't believe it's the right thing to do. It is as reckless as summarily just closing a school. We believe that the year isn't lost, that there is still something we can do about education, and that is what we want to engage the minister on, is how do we save what can be saved, and how do we act rationally at a time when everybody is hyped up and seriously impacted mentally by what is going on. So we said that the meeting was cancelled, but we know that we will have a meeting sooner rather than later, and we hope it will be sooner.
Now, as we learn that we're approaching the storm of the coronavirus and all the fears that come with it, as you mentioned, the emotional toll that it's had on teachers, when do you expect this meeting to happen? Because this really is one meeting that needs to happen really quickly.
We have no indication about when the meeting will happen. We are not 100% certain about why the cancellation, but in fact, we've directed another missive at the minister to say, let's please meet as soon as possible, and we hope that it may even be within the course of the day. Yes, this is a meeting that must happen, because the situation is not going to resolve itself, and now that the two biggest unions have called for a review of the position, and both of us have stated categorically that we are not calling for the abandonment of education. But there are many other things that we should be talking about. We should be talking about assessment, we should be talking about continuing education, and we should be talking about the matriculants, and what is really necessary to happen in a school to call this year a year that has succeeded in some education.
Now, education experts like Professor Jonathan Jansen have warned that we should not be blind to the reality that we are not going to cover the curriculum. You have just said that you believe that the 2020 academic year is still salvageable. Looking at some of the challenges that are being faced at the moment, we also know that the Education Department has spoken about how it will be a disadvantage for the poorer communities who will not be able to access online learning. As we take a look at those two scenarios, do you believe that this year can indeed be salvageable?
Naptosa has never believed that the academic year must be saved. We believe that learning must be saved, because that is a fundamentally different view. So we are not at odds completely with Professor Jansen's call. But we haven't called for the summary closure of schools. We believe that there is still some learning that must happen. We believe that the curriculum can never be saved. You can't lose 4 months of the year and save the curriculum. That's a fool's paradise. But there are important things that we need to do to ensure that the next year becomes a little easier. At the same time, I agree with the Minister that, in fact, there are many children who cannot access online education. But who says it must be online? And, of course, we need to learn from this. The one thing COVID-19 has done, it has catapulted many of us from an age when we were sort of fiddling with online things to being seriously online suddenly. And even the education department has to learn about that. And we've got to learn from those who did it successfully. But we've encouraged our teachers to be working on books for kids, worksheets for kids to take home, so that even when we do have a closure, those kids too can have some work to do. It cannot be nothing that goes home with the children, and it cannot only be online education, even though we believe that that is within our reach in the short term.
Now, very quickly before we let you go, a recent survey that was conducted found that Basic Education Minister Angie Motshekga is the least trusted senior government official among South Africans for 3 weeks running. Just looking at the outcome of that survey, as the number of teachers continue to contract the coronavirus, do you believe that the outcome of such a survey is something telling of the management of government when it comes to schools?
I think people react to what happens in the moment. It's context bound. And when you don't hear what you want to hear, you obviously react to that. I've worked for a long time with the minister, and I found her to be a person that I can work with. I have had serious differences, and this may be one of them too. But I wouldn't say she's the worst minister we've had. And certainly I think that her heart is certainly in the right place. So I'm not joining the chorus calling for her exit. I'm saying the lady certainly knows a lot more about education than a lot of people give her credit for.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your time. Let's leave it there for now. Naptosa, as Basil Manuel just speaking there, as the meeting that was scheduled to take place with the Education Minister has since been cancelled.